I'm Mike, and this is an intro. Alright, what we got here is my top 10 Nahiri the Lithomancer EDH deck additions. Specifically cards that I didn't want to put into my main deck list because they were either nowhere near a fit for anything like a budget, or I just wasn't aware of them at the time. There's a few cards that I honestly don't have any clue why it wasn't on that list. But I'm making up for them by putting them in here. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Nahiri, as awesome, is awesome. Or, as always, is awesome, but yeah, you get what I mean. So to start out, let's jump into the creatures. Containment Priest. She came with the deck, so I'm not too worried about price, but I'm actually a little iffy on her. On the one hand, she's a 2/2 for 2 with Flash, which isn't bad. On the other hand, her ability that really makes her awesome is that she stops decks that put things into the battlefield. You know, well, let me read the ability. If a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. This stops so many really, really scary decks. Kalia! Sorry, you didn't hear me cough there. That it can actually save you and make your enemies really freak out. On the other hand, this is a giant draw for hatred in the game. It's like dropping Iona for someone who has the right type of deck. A little less than Iona just because, you know, she's not a massive, almost unkillable angel because you can name someone's color. This, on the other hand, stops a lot of decks. It has instant speed, so you can screw around with someone's play strategies. On the other hand, yeah, it'll draw the hate away from the people you want to save, but you might not want the hate this early in game. Nahiri is good and can play a really solid game at any time, but you really don't want to push it if it's a multiplayer game. Serra Ascendant. I know I mentioned not wanting to draw hatred and all, but oh dear god, it's a 6/6 for 1 with lifelink that flies. All you have to do is have 30 or more life, and you start at 40, so dear god, this is the best base there is for any equipment. I mean, it can make a significant threat with anything put on it. Even on its own. Turn 1, have this out, you have, if nothing else, something really intimidating. Yeah, it'll draw hatred, but it's so good. Also, nowhere near a budget card. So I wasn't in the first deck, but it's so good. Serra Avenger. Now, this is just a flying, vigilant 3/3. But it's for 2. That's just a good base. You put an equipment on there and you're set. Not to mention, it has a really low mana curve, so some of the other cards can interact with it better. Such as Sun Titan that came with the main deck. This will reanimate her, and if you're a little low on mana, this won't hurt you in the slightest. Indomitable Archangel. God, I can't speak today. A flying 4/4 with Metalcraft. Specifically, artifacts you control have Shroud, as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. So basically, artifacts have Shroud. There are a lot of artifacts in this deck. You really want to save them. This does it. And, if nothing else, she's a 4/4 for 4 that flies, which isn't bad on its own. So a good base for anything you want to add on. And finally, this is a cheap to use, not so cheap to buy card. Okay, it's not cheap to use either, it's an 8-drop. Avacyn, Angel of Hope, an 8/8 for 8, flying vigilant. Your stuff is indestructible, including her. I have it in there for the same reason as Indomitable Archangel, which I still can't pronounce the name right. You drop her, and your stuff survives. That's just how it goes. Anyone who doesn't exile or put it on the bottom of your library or shuffled in just can't get rid of your stuff anymore. That, and with all the little protection abilities or pariah effects, this could easily hard lock or soft lock the game, and you can just pick your time and slowly work off your enemies with your equipment, giving you time to respond, time to plan. Now, it also draws hatred. It'll draw all the people trying to get rid of her in some way, all the specific board wipe effects that are exile. They will go for her. But if you play around those types of cards because you know they're around, this could end the game. Mostly in a soft lock by giving you the advantage. But still, it's one hell of an advantage. Now, the mana curve is a little more expensive than I would like in this deck, but if it's a late game drop, it will be a very, very good late game drop. Alright, next up, I'm going to jump into the equipment. Or, well, not the equipment, the artifacts specifically 2 artifacts that really, really help this deck. Rings of Bright Hearth. Yeah, I gotta say that right. Okay, I will admit, I will also add Basalt Monolith is next, and there is the infinite mana combo with this, specifically colorless. So with things like Avacyn, it still helps, so as long as I have mana open. On the other hand, I love equipment, so colorless helps. Infinite colorless also helps. But, as odd as this might sound, this card is not in here for the infinite colorless mana combo. That's just a nice little addition in case it's late game and Nahiri's been cast 20 dozen times for some odd reason. This card is in here because it will take advantage of cards such as the Valkyrie, the Steel Shaper Apprentice, and the Stonehewer Giant, which, ooh, you got terrible glare there. These cards all have activated abilities, and especially these two let you search out equipment. Yeah, this one puts it in your hand, this one puts it into play equipped, so they're both awesome. And this one lets you save a creature. Well, you basically tag a creature, and if it dies, it's yours on the field. These things are all abilities that can be copied by the rings. And each of these abilities, especially these two in this deck, have devastating potential to end a game. In your favor, of course. Unless for some reason you're screwing around and you're trying not to win. Yeah, that would be weird. But yeah, this card is just a great enabler. And, this is the best part, it works on Nahiri. Now, it won't give her the extra loyalty counter, but if for some reason, for any reason, you use any of these abilities, the first one, at most, you have an extra blocker with maybe an extra equipment on it. But the second one, that's 2 artifacts from your graveyard or hand onto the field, and because the token she creates is not legendary, yeah, see? Oh, you can't really see it from there. Basically, you can get 2 copies of that. And if you ever get up to the point where you drop that ability, and you can get double it, that is very, very insane and good and amazing. The rings, like I said, are amazing. Alright, next card, Batterskull. A 5-drop, it can be returned to your hand. It's a 5 equip, which is a little expensive, but not so big a deal in this deck. And it gives +4/+4 Vigilance and Lifelink. Add that onto the Living Weapon effect, where it comes in equipped with Germ, and you have a very, very good card for a deck that might always need creatures and artifacts at the same time. If for any reason you use Nahiri's second ability and get that back from the graveyard, it automatically becomes has a creature attached to it. So you will have a blocker and you have lifelink. Not to mention, it is just really good in its own right. Now, I didn't put it in the first deck because Batterskull is still rather expensive. It's gone down from where it was at last I know, but it's not a moderate budget card. It's not a budget card. It is, you drop money on this thing. If you have it, great. If you don't, you're not going to lose out too much. But I would like to point out that the Living Weapon effect with Nahiri is a very good mechanic. So even things like Flare Husk, it's a 1-drop or a 1/1 with Equip 2 and a Living Weapon. The Living Weapon effect is very good because you can cut down on so much of the the base cards you need to equip to the equipment, because this comes with equipment, or it comes with a creature pre-attached. That's just a useful effect to have in someone who needs more equipment than creatures. So just something to consider. Alright, we have one more set of cards, and okay, this was actually technically a top 10. I didn't do the counting. I'll probably add the numbers to the video. So what you need to remember is that this next count, I'm counting it as the 9th and 10th numbers. So, well, you'll see. For number 9, Godsend. It's the white equipment out of Theros block that was just... It has Exile Touch. Sorta. A 3/3 buff for 3 equip and 3-drop. And whenever a creature blocks or becomes blocked by one or more creatures, you may exile one of those creatures. This says that if you try and stop me, I will make you hurt. And, now it's a little less useful in EDH, but the second ability, opponents can't cast cards with the same name as the exile card or cards exiled with Godsend. That can be really bad if someone's playing like a Relentless Rats or a Shadowborn Apostle deck, or even if they're just using basic standard cards that everyone is aware of and kind of uses in general, like a Birds of Paradise. If for some stupid reason this is what gets exiled with this, the entire field is then denied that card, which could easily affect the game. And if nothing else, it's a 3-buff with potential exile, which scares people out of blocking you often. Alright, next up, these 3 cards I'm just lumping together for number 10, because, the Mirrodin Swords. Now, technically, Fire and Ice and Lion Shadow should be here, but I don't own them, and they're god-awful expensive. I don't want to buy them. But if you have them, they fit this theme. So first you have the Sword of Body and Mind. +2/+2, pro-blue, pro-green. You mill the opponent 10, and you get a 2/2 creature. No, specifically a wolf token. Useful. And if it has double strike, they mill 20. There's a lot of creatures or ways to give double strike in this deck. They're going to be milling 20. And if you make a copy of this with the one equipment that comes in as a copy, and you give it on a double strike creature, that's milling 40 each turn, or specifically with each hit. That's actually really insanely fun somehow. Sword of War and Peace. Pro-red, pro-white, +2/+2, and whenever you do combat damage, the player loses life equal to the number of cards in hand, and you gain the same amount for the number in your hand. Useful. Great on a double strike, too. And Sword and Feast and Famine. It untaps your lands, it discards a card from the enemy, and +2/+2, pro-green, pro-black. There are a lot of combos with this. I don't usually take advantage of this deck, but the protections alone make this a very, very useful card. They make sure you can hit the enemy, and chances are, most people are playing black, so you can't be kill-spelled away with this, or at least with it out. Alright, that's the deck. Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't. Well, haven't subscribed yet. Wow, that was a botch. But, yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. Later.